Hey folks, thanks for stopping by. Today's project is a desk clock. We'll take this chunk of curly maple, we'll cut a recess into it large enough for the clock mechanism, we'll turn the outside of it round, and then we'll grind off a section of it so that the clock sits facing up on a desk. Stick around, we'll get started. I'm going to be mounting this on a screw chuck, so the first thing I need to do is drill a hole the diameter and depth of the screw. Since this is a fairly small piece, I don't need the whole length of my worm screw. So what I did was place a 1/4 inch disc on the screw and then cut it down so that I don't have to go quite so deep. So this should thread on fairly straight, assuming the hole was drilled straight. Whatever-ish. Alright, let me get it down to round, and this will be the front, so I will drill a 2 3/8 inch recess here, the depth of the insert. So actually, let me start by getting it down to round. Since this is in bowl orientation, you know, the grain is running this way, I'm not going to touch it with a spindle roughing gouge. It's one rule that you just do not do. A little bit closer. Still get a little bit of tear out. We can deal with that when we get to sanding, but let me try facing this off and see if I can get a good flat surface before we start drilling. Let me get set up to drill and I'll be right back. Alrighty, the Largest drill bit I have is, I think, 2 1/8 inches large. Let me go ahead and drill to the depth of the drill. Luckily, that's exactly the depth I need. Turn the speed way down. The hole I need is 2 3/8 inches wide. So let me set the calipers. 2 3/8. So I'll go just shy of that so that I'll do that with a carbide cutter, small square carbide cutter. Go ahead and check the clock. I'm going to push it all the way in because it looks like it has little tabs and it might make it a bit difficult to get out. By the time I sand that up, that should be a bit of an easier fit, but as you can see, it's the right size. So let me go ahead and grab some 120 and knock that down a bit, and I'll hit this edge. Actually, let me clean that face off first. Grab some sandpaper and I'll sand the inside of that edge and the face. Let me put a little bit of triple E on the outside of this. When I reverse it onto the chuck, it's going to be hard to get to this face. Actually, before I do that, also let me round over that edge a little bit. So, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The only reason I say that is there's a little chip there that I really need to get rid of. sand that little edge. I think it's lovely wood, but I don't think the color of the maple will go very well with the black on the clock. So let me get some dye. We'll turn this black as well. I'm only going to do this edge and around that corner because I've still got some turning to do back here. Alright, I think it'll look nice. Let me flip it around and we'll do the back side. Alrighty, we don't need this whole length, so I'm probably going to take off about that much, which just coincidentally happens to take out the hole. Let me get started on that. A little bit too aggressive. Didn't look like any damage was done though, so let me get it rechucked. One little ding. I'll take care of that one. let me start sanding. I think that's good. Okay, let's get some dye on it. Yeah. Alright, let's move over to the belt sander, and then we'll sand off a corner of this so that it sits like that on the desk. Okay, let's see what we can do about making this sit about like that. It's a pretty orientation. So I need to take off that corner. So off camera, after I finished sanding that, I took some bit of dye and filled in the spot that was sanded off. Assembly is straightforward. So I put a battery in the camera. It has a small door here. Now, get this lined up the way I want it. Straight and and there we go. Thanks for stopping by. If this is your first time here, be sure to hit subscribe, hit like, comment, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. Take care.